So good morning. My name is Chris Lovell. I am a paralegal with the Economic Advocacy and Community Health Unit at Coast to Coast Legal Aid of South Florida. And welcome to our Fridays with Friends. Today we have someone who has been a friend with many people in our firm for many years, Cindy Huddleston, who is with Florida Policy Institute. Cindy is an attorney with over 35 years, with over 35 years of experience advocating on strengthening public assistance programs for low-income Floridians. Before joining the Florida Policy Institute, Cindy worked at Florida Legal Services and Legal Services of Greater Miami, where she represented indigent clients to maximize access to programs that provide work support, such as the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, which is called SNAP, which we call food assistance here in Florida, and which everybody calls food stamps still. And reemployment assistance, which is RA, and a lot of people call that unemployment, temporary assistance for needy families, TANF. Cindy has extensive service or extensive experience as an advocate and a lobbyist for policies that promote financial security for all Floridians. And we all thank her for it. Cindy received her BA from the University of Tennessee and her JD from Case Western Reserve University. She focuses on safety net programs for low-income families. Welcome, Cindy.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate it. And let me say, before you move on, that I certainly appreciate Coast to Coast Legal Aid in so many ways. Over the years, the attorneys and paralegals at that program have just been such an enormous help in getting a lot of systemic changes made to the program and in advocating for their clients and in helping me. So I really appreciate you, and I appreciate your inviting me here today.
Welcome. So when you and I spoke the other day, we talked a lot about a lot of different issues, and certainly one of the most current one that DCF has been dealing with, and you and us and all of us have been dealing with, is disaster SNAP. Could you talk about that for a while and tell everybody what it is, how it works, and can I get it?
I would be happy to talk about that, because it's such an enormously beneficial program after a disaster like Hurricane Ian. And to give you an example of how this works, I will use what's happened in Hurricane Ian as an example, because the department and the state usually follows a pretty similar template for every hurricane if it's major enough. If there is a disaster declaration that provides individual assistance, then Florida has the option of providing disaster SNAP benefits, that's disaster food assistance benefits. And they do this using a lot of flexibilities that federal law provides them and allows them to do. Perhaps the most familiar thing that folks can think of when they think of disaster SNAP is the actual DSNAP benefits. And those go to families who are not participating in SNAP currently, but who, because of the hurricane or other disaster, have suffered some kind of economic loss, and they need help putting food on the table after the disaster. So these folks, who again are not people who are current participants, can apply for disaster SNAP, and the department will look at things like their income, the resources that they're able to get their hands on immediately for cash, and what their expenses have been related to the hurricane. And based on that, a lot of people can qualify for DSNAP who would not necessarily ordinarily qualify for the regular SNAP program. And when you do qualify for DSNAP, you'll get the highest level of benefits for a family of your size. Unlike the regular SNAP program, where you look at your net income and you subtract it from the SNAP benefit level for a family of your size, and you get the remainder. For DSNAP, for people who aren't current participants in the program, they will automatically get the highest amount of food stamps or SNAP that's available for a family of their size. Now, ordinarily, it's just for 1 month. Sometimes, if a disaster is bad enough, the department can work with the federal government and extend it to more than 1 month, but usually it's just 1 month of benefits. So that's what I think most people think about when they hear about DSNAP. But there's also some other things that come into play in a DSNAP program. You know how I said that if you're not a regular SNAP participant, but you qualify for DSNAP, you can get benefits at the maximum amount for a family of your size. Well, for parity's sake, if you're a current regular SNAP participant after a disaster, and you're one of those counties that provides individual assistance, and the department is going to run a DSNAP program, the department can provide, and often does, automatically additional benefits to regular SNAP participants' allotments, which brings them up to the maximum amount of a family of their size. That's to make it fair between people who weren't current participants and people who are current participants. Another thing that the department does, and they did this in Ian, is that they will often automatically replace the SNAP benefits of folks who were living in those counties that were affected by the disaster. Replacement SNAP is not something that is limited to a disaster, but automatic replacement is. Ordinarily, replacement SNAPs kind of kicks in when someone has had their own individual unique disaster, like a house fire, for example, and you've lost your food that you bought with SNAP because of the fire. In those cases, you can actually fill out a form and ask DCF to replace the SNAP benefits that you lost. So after a hurricane, what DCF will often do is, for recipients who are in those counties that were affected, they will automatically replace all or a portion of your benefits depending on what day the hurricane hit. And that's what the department did in Ian. They automatically replaced the benefits of many households in the state. And for those that they didn't, they tried to make it clear that people could still request replacement individually if they weren't covered by automatic replacement. Now, I don't doubt that a lot of people didn't get that word, but the good news is that for most counties, regular participants automatically got their benefits replaced up to a certain amount.
And so there were only 6 or 7 or 8 counties that were involved. I know I got a lot of phone calls from people here in Broward County wanting to get their disaster benefits, but those aren't available outside the county. However, as you said, if for whatever reason they did lose food during the storm and can indicate that, then that food is replaceable maybe up to 70%, is it?
Yeah, it's ordinarily it's replaceable up to 100%. Now in Ian, DCF did something a little unusual, and for their automatic replacement, they only automatically replaced up to 70%. But they told households that if you lost more than 70%, we'll replace up to 100%, but you have to ask for it. So that was a little bit of an anomaly for their rollout of their disaster program. But ordinarily, you can ask for replacement of your SNAP benefits up to 100% of the benefits if you lost them due to some kind of what the feds call a household misfortune, which is like a hurricane, a flood, a fire, those kind of things.
So we're talking in the past, though, at this point, because those types of benefits have to be claimed in 10 days of the date of the disaster. Is that correct? Right?
Yes, ordinarily that's correct. For some counties in Florida with Ian, they allowed a longer period of time, and they extended that period of time because they couldn't get the word out to people. There wasn't, a lot of media available because of problems with technology, cell phones, those kind of things. So they did extend it, and they will often extend it, but ordinarily you just have 10 days if you're going to make your individual request from the date that you lost your food in some kind of disaster.
Got it. Some of the other things we talked about, I forget if we were online when we were talking or not, but I was asking you questions about as far as parity is concerned, there's parity from state to state. Since Florida has proclaimed that we no longer have a state health emergency, there's been an impact, hasn't there?
There's been a huge impact. Up until July of last year, during COVID, Florida was participating in what's called a SNAP Emergency Allotment Program, which was something that Congress authorized during COVID for states that have a state health emergency in effect, as well as when the national public health emergency is in effect. When Florida decided not to renew its health emergency in 2021, that meant that Florida's SNAP participants lost the ability to be able to get this emergency allotment, which was really a huge impact. And just looking at the figures, in July of last year, which was the last year that we had an emergency allotment program, 1.7 million households got $283 million in emergency allotments. So we're talking a lot of money that immediately, went out of the pockets of folks and was no longer going into the local economy, being spent at stores and farmers markets and places like that.
And what's a shame is that doesn't really impact the state. It wasn't the state's money. It was the inability of the federal government to make those allotments because of the denial of the disaster.
That's right. Currently, there are 35 states I think, that continue to participate in emergency allotment. So, a lot of states are still doing it. But those are states who have to have had and have to have a public health emergency in place at the state level. And, that was just one of the consequences of Florida's deciding not to renew its public health emergency. I don't think that Florida didn't renew its public health emergency because they didn't want to have emergency allotments. That was just one of the impacts of discontinuing that public health emergency on the state basis.
And it's ironic because as you said, Florida is one of, or probably the largest state in terms of the amount of benefits that are given out.
Yeah, a lot of benefits. Millions and millions of dollars every month that are no longer going back into local economies and no longer helping to put food on the table for people who are still struggling, as we know, to this day.
Well, struggling not only from the hurricane, but the incredible increases in the cost of food.
Yes,
and one of the things that that you and I talked about is a lot of people don't realize that there's an opportunity for them for SNAP benefits to increase, or for the recipients who are receiving them to double the amount that they are essentially receiving by going to farmers markets. Could you talk about that?
Yes, that's a really good point. It's a fabulous program that we have here in Florida, and it's called Florida Fresh Access Bucks. And what it does is, if you go to a participating farmers market or food stand, and there's a list online of which ones are participating, you can get an extra $1 for every $1 that you spend there to buy fresh fruit and vegetables at the farmers market or food stand. And that is an enormous help because, as we know, although USDA, to their credit, did do an administrative increase of SNAP benefits last year, with the increase in food costs that we've seen recently, people are struggling with the amount of SNAP that they get. Even before prices that went up on food, people were having a hard time making their SNAP last throughout the month. They were certainly having a hard time, and still are, buying, fresh fruits and vegetables, for every meal, because those things can add up. It can be quite pricey. And at times, the only way that you can make sure that you're feeding your children is if you buy foods that may not be quite as nutritious as other foods, but at least they're keeping your kids full and keeping hunger away. So this is a great program that really encourages and allows families, to a big extent, to be able to put fresh fresh fruits and vegetables on the table. And by the way, we're hoping that in the next couple of years that this program is expanded, that the state will actually appropriate money to do more of this, and maybe take it to some retailers that are, to two of your more traditional retailers than farmers markets or food stands. So this is something that's really important, and I think this is something that most folks can get behind.
The process of doing it, I don't know if we need to go into that, but basically you're exchanging your SNAP benefits for tokens. Then you utilize those tokens at those locations. And it's not just farmers markets, it's food pantries and other food giveaway locations. So it's a great piece of knowledge for SNAP recipients to know about. As a matter of fact, after we finish this, I will put the locations or some websites where individuals can go and check out the locations that are available in their area to get these services.
That would be wonderful. In a survey that we participated in last year, I would say at least 25% of the people in our survey had never even heard of it before. So getting the knowledge out and getting the word out about this program is really important. I think that for the folks who use it, they think it's invaluable.
Right. I agree with you completely. You know, Cindy, I enjoy seeing you in so many different topics and so many different forums. I really appreciate your taking the time to join us today. I wanted to let people that are watching know now that if they had questions, they could type them into the comment box. I should have said that earlier, but if there's somebody right now who has some specific question, if you want to go ahead and put it in the comment box, then we can address that now, or we'll address it in the future. We will follow up and make sure that the website locations are available. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. And thanks again to Coast Legal Aid for doing this. Really appreciate it. I've enjoyed it. Our time was short, as it turned out, but I look forward to working with you in the future. And if anyone has any questions about SNAP, please feel free to reach out to me too.
Great. Cindy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.